All right, this is episode 58 of the CROM Updates, and I am once again joined by Rom Parsons, fantasy author. Our last episode, we dove into Rom's CROM and the Ziggurat of Blood, which is a downloadable story. Rom, how are you doing this morning?
I am doing good. How about you?
I am beyond excited
Yes,
because
I'm excited
you've
too.
got some things going on that are now starting to come into visual. But I still want to give everybody a heads up about you as a writer. You're the first writer I had on to talk about contributing to the community. As a writer, and towards the end of that episode, I was mentioning like, well, it's community. You can reach out to some people and get them to work on a comic book or illustrations and stuff. And you got two people
Yeah, yeah, it's,
wrangled in.
it's amazing. Yeah,
So give after that episode, give me a rundown on sort of how you proceeded in getting James Anthony and Drawnsword, in collaboration with your writing.
yeah. James and I think the first time we talked, James and I had already been started working together. However, it's changed a little bit. I think the last time I talked to you, um, our plan was it was going to be a prose story that was heavily illustrated,
Yeah,
and then. Uh, so we were working on that, and then after we talked, Drawn Sword reached out to me and said he was interested in working with me on a comic after he read Ziggurat of Blood, which blew my mind because I love his work. It totally blew my mind.
oh
Yeah,
gosh.
I was
Go ahead.
shocked. And um, well, through the course of me and Drawn Sword working together and talking, he asked me about what James and I were doing, and
Right.
he mentioned. I said it's going to be heavily illustrated, but a lot of it's going to be prose, and he said, "Well, that sounds sort of like the old Gil Kane Black Mark
Yeah.
graphic novel, which I had never heard of."
Oh.
And so I was like, "Oh, really?" So I had to go get Black Mark, and so then when I actually got Black Mark and went through it. I reached back out to James and said, "Well, instead of just prose with some illustrations,
Yeah, like
how about we do it like this, like Black Mark?" And so he agreed, and so yeah, it sort of turned into something much more along the lines of like what Black Mark is than just prose with illustrations. So
no,
yeah,
I did. Yeah, I did not know that. I knew the collaboration between you and James Anthony was illustrative, which right there, whenever and everybody what we're talking about is basically ROM stories on one side, illustration on the other, which is a treat.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, there is that, and I'm going to be flashing up some pages from Black Mark by Gil Kane, um, because that is a really neat flow. As a matter of fact, the uh, um, Making Turbo Pit Fighter channel that I work with
yeah,
Jake Jacobs on, we did um, comics that influence, and that was one of the comics, and
yeah,
we really dug into it because it was the first of its kind and basically the last of its kind
yeah,
because the publishers wouldn't keep moving along with it. So it's a big shame, but here we have a version coming down the road. So pretty
yeah,
damn excited to hear that.
yeah. So yeah, and when I showed James some of the pages from it, I was like, I really like this. What do you think? And do we want to do this in this style? Uh, and he was all for it. So yeah, it's been good. And So yeah, that project features my original creation. Her name is Alani the Swordswoman, um, and so that will be. I have most of the James has finished most of the pages on that, and we're working on the cover. Uh, we were actually doing that earlier today. We were talking about that. So yeah, that is moving along, and then of course with Drawnsword on CROM Anthology.
Yep.
That was so yeah. Drawnsword, as I said, Drawnsword reached out to me. He had a basic idea of a story, and he said, could you help me flesh it out and do the scripting? So it's 11 pages, and I'm just it's this is the first
It's
just
just
first
you
straight up.
have you have seen these pages, right?
Oh yeah,
Okay, good. Because
yeah.
I just got them this morning. And you know what? God bless John Sword for putting up with me emailing him every other week.
Yeah,
How's it going? You got anything to show? And I have so much respect for his ironclad process.
yeah,
It is something. I have a Drawn Sword playlist here on Crom the Barbarian YouTube. I just really, really encourage people to go back and listen to them over time. And it took me that time too, as Drawn Swords sharing, his process, and then being able to work with him on the cover, the alternate cover for Crumb Collected. I just, his work alone is very absorbing. I
yeah.
just, when
Oh
I
yeah,
found him online and I was, kind of following him on his website because he's not on social media. God bless once again. I was like, wow, this would just be a really neat person to engage. Let's see what happens. But as time has rolled, as most, if not all, the people, I'm in collaboration with, and the collaboration, it grows. Um, I'm just so enamored with the individual becoming very specific about how they're going to make it and how much time too.
yeah,
So, with all jokes aside, John Sword was, basically saying, I don't have anything to show yet. And what he was really saying was he didn't have the 11 pages. And that was like the biggest respect there, is that to
yeah,
get all the way out there and say, okay, I am completed on these 11 pages, I will now show them. I just really have to say, kudos to him. So I am only going to show 4 pages of the 11 because I am not going to spoil this in any way for those who will have to get the first CROM Anthology with this running in it. But what was your initial reaction to Drawn Sword coming your way and requesting collaboration, and B, where this ended up on your plate as the writer in collaboration?
well yeah. Like I said, I was blown away because I have Scoundrel's Dread, and I just sit for however much free time I have and just flip through that all the time. And
I do too.
yeah,
That's why it's so damn close.
and
Oh.
so yeah, I'm always flipping through. So when he reached out and said he wanted to work with me, I was flabbergasted. And so, but yeah, so like I say, he had this basic idea, wanted me to work with him to flesh it out and do the script. So yeah, it was great. I came up with I took what he had and ran with it, and and he really liked what I came up with, thankfully, and he's been great in terms of. And this is the first comic script I've written. Just and
Oh.
as a comic fan, I mean, you think it's one of those things where you think I could do that. It's
Yeah. Yeah.
I could do that, and then when you start actually doing it panel by panel, like, well, there's a lot I don't know. there's,
Right.
there's a lot I
I
have to
don't
think.
know. I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm doing. I have to, there's things I've had to think about that, I didn't know I was going to have to think about. So, but he's been really good and patient with me. My big thing was I did not want to be one of those writers that tries to cram a zillion panels on a page and a
Yeah,
zillion word balloons. I just
yeah.
so there was a couple of times where I would send him the script and he'd respond, well, you actually have more room for a little bit more dialogue here.
Nice, nice.
so so yeah, that was my and giving him room to do his thing was, those are the things that I sort of had foremost in my mind. So I'm thrilled with it. I think it looks great, um, and I hope everybody digs it.
Yeah, well, they're because Drawnsword is a part of the original five, which were individuals that I reached out to just come and play with me in the CROM sandbox and get a pinup in here, and then I had come up with the idea and then asked if it would be appropriate to also do just a real quick, do a version of the covers, each of them, and then once the pre-ordering was done, they could then get copies from me and then sell them, and I wouldn't be selling them. So if you want a drawn sword CROM collected, you have to go through drawn sword, and obviously
Yeah.
we can get you in touch. But I had not only drawn sword, but David Molina, another amazing artist. He was the first. Ken Landgraf, and I just got 4 pages of a comic book story done by Ken Landgraf, scripted by me. Super excited about that.
Yeah.
Adam Dodds, I just reconnected with. He's doing an ink version of this pinup. So this pencil
Oh,
pinup
cool.
I put it here at the end, and then I said, I want to give something to people who just want to be inkers like myself, and not, and Adam has just this doodly gobbledygook way of going about things, and that's a hashtag by him on Instagram. And it's just luscious. It's just something I can constantly dive into. And then of course Jason Schoonover, both Jason and David Molina. Jason has turned in his pages for Crom Dahar, which I'll be getting
Okay.
on
Awesome.
inking wise. And then David is got 3. By now, he's probably got like a page and a half to get penciled for the first 7 pages of our 2-part story. So, I want to speak real quickly, to everybody listening, and wondering what the hell is going on. This is, and if you're attracted to what you see, not only, with Drawn Sword, what I just showed off for the CROM Collected, um, I am building a community around Crom the Barbarian, which is a public domain character done in the 50s by 2 gentlemen by the name of Gardner Francis Fox, which you can get all the stories in the Crom Collected. Because he's in the public domain, I claim no ownership of the character. But of course, there's always, what one makes and comes up with in the way of like ideas and designs and stuff is another story. But Rom, I just have to say how thankful I am that you reached out to me, sent me a copy of your story. We got together, and I gave a lot of questions. Because writers in the world of comics, for me, is a it's a very specific tool, or they work with a specific set of tools that is so necessary. Yet, the thing about comics is always the penciler is the star.
Right.
And then the guy writing it, yeah, he just put some words together. And then the guy inking it, yeah, he just traces over the
Yeah.
guy's pencils. But there's this mythology that's so entwined and tangled with comic books that the real superstar is the one that pencils. Now, I do give the greatest admiration to the penciler because they do have to do a lot of the heavy lifting and imagining the sequences and the
Right.
camera angles and everything. And I give that to them. But if you have a writer and you're one of three right now, just with Crom the Barbarian, but I also work with another incredible writer, Jake Jacobs, who does our pencils and I do the inking.
Yeah. Yeah.
For our turbo pit fighter, there's a specific, and I use the word tool. It's like a skill, but can you speak to how a little bit more to your kind of like desire slash need to engage artists as a writer when it comes to just not only like you could just hire somebody to make a cover for this and then stick it on Kindle
Yeah.
and then go on to the next, but you're looking for a lot more interaction. Can you go into a little bit more about that?
Yeah. Maybe it's my own sense of inadequacy. I don't know. I feel like my words alone won't convey the what it is I'm trying to uh, get across, and so I have this need to find an artist that can look at this look at how cool this is. Maybe that's part of it, but yeah, and I guess for me, I've always thought up stories. Um, I even hesitate to call myself a writer. I just feel like I'm somebody that makes up stories. Um,
Types
and
on a typewriter,
yeah, and uh, so yeah, I think once I really got into comics, and I actually came into becoming a comics fan relatively late in life. I read them as a kid, but went a long time without really getting into it. I got into them, late 20s. Um, and so when I really started getting into I started thinking, this is what I really this really should be my medium because, the visual part of it, um, I guess my imagination is more visual. So
Yeah.
uh, I would rather it be visual than me just writing, if that makes sense.
Oh no,
So,
it makes perfect sense,
uh,
and it's what I'm speaking to when it comes to the community and what is being built in the world of collaborating in comic books.
yeah. So, so yeah. So the fact that and there's been a lot of went through a lot of creative frustration of I don't feel like the stories that I'm thinking up or and writing are getting the full treatment because they're just words, not images. So now that things are going in the right direction, and we're finally getting some images with my the things I'm thinking up. It's a great feeling.
Yeah, you're doing from the writer's position exactly what I was hoping somebody like yourself would do in joining the community. Because in our conversation, I might have been a little pushy backy on the idea that the right somebody could write something like you said, not be a writer, but write up a concept or idea and then push it upon. And I've had this happen to me, and this is why I kind of express maybe a little frustration with dealing with individuals who are trying to get their writers out. Because then I, as the artist, most definitely in the majority of freelance work situations end up being more of a tool than
Yeah.
a kindred spirit.
Right.
And
Okay.
and you're doing the fact that you can look at both um, these are two individuals who are very aware of each other. Drawnsword and James Anthony are very well. Drawnsword's in New Zealand, James Anthony's in England. And I know these guys are very aware of each other, because anytime I start talking about, like, this video will probably both have their comments in there about the admiration they have for each other's work. But at first glance, you're going, I know people from the outside are probably looking, going, wait a second. These are very, why would this guy like this guy?
Yeah.
It can be a little like off putting to people. But more importantly, you as the input of words, you're allowing them. In other words, you have not put yourself in a push on top of them kind of way in order to, let's say, get a more Rom Parsons identity in the story and art than the collaboration
Right.
between you and the artist.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think I said this the first time when we talked, and James, has come up with so many story concepts um, that I hadn't thought of, that made the story and these stories way better. And he does that almost every day. He comes up with something, and it's like, hey, what about this? And I was like, yeah, that's great. Yeah, let's do it. Um, so yeah, I want to be in collaboration. I don't want to be the, here, draw this, make it look like this.
The star, if you will.
I don't want to be that guy. Yeah, no.
Yeah, the
So
star. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Yeah, I came across James's work through Instagram, and as always, if somebody is posting enough, and now I'm getting over to their channel and I'm watching over time, there's definitely a mechanism for me that switches on about the unique approach, and I use the term fantasy art, and I don't think James is going to have any objection to me applying that to him. But the distilling that James puts in the simplicity in appearance to his images, yet the amount of information we're getting story wise that's happening in here, which is it's very similar to the rendering style that Drawn Sword has. But I feel it's almost a kindred spirit of
yeah,
fantasy artists distilling themselves through all the things that have kept them going in the world, and inspirational, to help them generate their own images and use as reference. So it becomes a language. So
yeah,
between not only John Sword, James Anthony, and Rom Parsons. So you have three people that are dealing with fantasy art in a language, sword and sorcery specific, barbarians, so on and so forth. Is the immediacy of everybody agreeing, yeah, this is what you get, this is, you know what I mean, this is where we're going, this is like that. It's kind of easy.
yeah.
Would you agree with me on
Yeah.
that? It's kind of easy in a creepy way, right?
Yeah, and it is. I think since the three of us are all so into sword and sorcery, and sort of drawing from some of the same inspirations, but at the same time wanting to kind of push it forward as well.
Yeah.
Um, I think it's yeah, it's been a great thing.
So I just want to get to
And
really.
I should say real quick, the
Yeah.
11 pages that we have going, me and Drawnsword have going for the CROM Anthology, that is a
Uh-huh.
part one.
Yeah.
Um, so
Crom the
it's
Courageous.
CROM the Courageous. It's a part one. Uh, it's going to be, I think, three parts, um, probably 11 to 12 pages each part. So there's more coming.
Oh yes. Well, and that's where I wanted to kind of start exiting our podcast today with is you giving exactly what you've done, and I'll add to what you just said that this is an 11 pager. Its first appearance will be in the CROM Anthology #1. In the future, there will be other installments serial wise to it, and this is a part of the design that I've been instigating upon people. Is we always have this initial reaction to make this massive thing. If I made this massive 200-page graphic novel, everybody will want a copy, right?
Right. Yeah, of course.
Without any marketing, without any bookshelf out there, without it just gets on Instagram and your 55 followers and the rest of the world will just succumb to the beauty and the enamoration of the fact that you put to it's a crock of shit. We're sold and we spoon up. I need to make a graphic. No, you don't. No, you don't. You need to contribute
Yeah.
to other people in a community through an anthology. And that is very much what the CROM, thebarbarian.com and the community is all about. And once again, from my heart and gratitude to both you and Drawn Sword specifically for putting this together and being released in that fashion in CROM Anthology #1. So I just have to thank you. I will be meeting with CROM, with Drawn Sword in a couple of weeks, and we'll be able to go through these pages and hear his side of the story. But it just makes me feel like I'm not crazy anymore, having these ideas or feelings and
Yeah.
thoughts, especially about this, because I suffered. I suffered for years in a world where the frustration was so suppressing. How am I going to make a 200-page graphic design,
Right.
a graphic
Right.
novel, and then sell it to everybody? It's just not. It's not true. And it shouldn't be soul crushing. And like I always say, in collaboration efforts, working with me on getting your work into a CROM anthology, low to no stress. Low to no stress. This should be joy driven because the truth is there's not a lot of money to be made in comics, but more specifically, sword and sorcery. You're
It's
talking about like like a pebble on the beach of the comics industry for there.
yeah.
But I have always found the fans to be some of the most gracious, empathetic, and highly creative, prolifically too,
Yeah.
individuals out there. So just have to thank all those who come this way. But with you and James Anthony, you said you guys are working on a cover. How many pages? How is it getting released? Where is it? Where are you anticipating? This effort coming into birth and into the wild, so we can get copies of it.
Yeah. I think it's going to end up being between 50 and 60 pages.
Okay.
Um, it's called Citadel of Swords, Alani and the Citadel of Swords. I think as of right now, once it's all done, I think we're going to release it through Amazon,
Okay.
like the print on demand. I've talked to a few people that have done that, and they've said um, it's worked for them. I don't know if you're familiar with Matt John. He's a
No.
sword and sorcery writer.
No.
He did have a story in one of the recent issues of Savage Sword of Conan,
Oh wow.
and
Congratulations.
he has a book. It's not a graphic novel. It's a sword and sorcery book that he's done
Oh
on
yeah. Right.
Amazon, and he's had success with it. And so I sent him a message and said, would you, has it been pretty low stress? And he said, yeah. So that's where I think right now, um, because I was mainly if I was going to distribute it myself, I was stressing about having to mail things and
Oh
you
yeah.
know how many ever, which I know you're aware of. So But
Yep.
I thought if we could do it on Amazon and let Amazon worry about that part of it, then I could focus on this. So we're working on the cover. I'm working on the digital lettering of it
Okay.
right now. So I guess in a few months, I'm hoping we can get it released.
I'm hoping it's also going to be in time so I can get at least a 2-page spread in CROM Anthology #1 to help promote it.
Okay, yeah,
So that, like I said, the worst case scenario in collaboration with myself and CROMTheBarbarian.com, CROM Anthologies, is you got a CROM or sword and sorcery or fantasy style art and story that you have out there in the wild that you want people to get a hold of, I am more than happy to give 2 pages away with QR code leading to where they can get it, and then
okay, cool.
that'll always be there. Also, one of the things I'm anticipating, um, and I know you're an old guy like me, and one of the things I've been very marketing wise obsessed with and trying to bring back is the banner exchange. Do you remember banner exchanges on websites, bro?
Oh yeah, 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 yeah,
Before social media, everybody,
yeah,
when you wanted to create a sort of like network community online, even before Tumblr, I have to say, you would exchange a banner,
yeah,
and there
yeah,
would be a page that would be devoted. As a matter of fact, that was like that was the beginning in online marketing is referred to as backlinking. So you could actually rise up on the search results for like Google and such because two websites were talking about the same thing. So this was
yeah,
a pretty
yeah,
huge thing. But I'm marketing wise now trying to design something similar. Now, not everybody has a website or will have a website that's involved in the community, but there's nothing stopping anybody to help promote and send the signal out periodically, not just once, but periodically. And that would be something that I would be sending out in the way of like a newsletter style thing saying, hey, here's an update on everybody. If you have a chance through your social media and stuff, send a boost out to A, B, and C because we haven't heard anything lately, or so on and so forth. So once again, the community is there for that as well. So wow, it's super exciting.
yeah,
And dare I ask, what's in the works?
yeah. Well, I'm already we're already working on the me and James are working on the sequel to um, the first Alani story. And if you show the image with the sort of like the lizard chariots,
Yes.
uh, that's a teaser for the second Alani story.
Woohoo.
So I'm deep into scripting that, um, and so there will be not just the first one, but there'll be a second one too, and there's going to be a number of them. And I'm on that, and then Drawnsword and I have already been pretty heavy in conversations about a sequel to Crom the Courageous too. Um,
Oh wow.
and I'm also scripting that too. I'm trying to like lay out how I see the panels going, and so actually I'm going to be sending some of that to Drawn Sword this weekend too. So
That's awesome to hear.
yeah, so it's
Woo.
sort of like the first wave I'm finishing up on, and then I'm already into the second uh, of both of those. So
That's great.
yep,
That's
I'm,
awesome.
I'm pretty
Yeah,
pretty
and I do know that Drawn Sword is working on Karnak, which is his
yeah
own barbarian comic story, and there is a very good chance. And when I say very good chance, it's more optimistic than not. That also being in Crom the anthology, and as the page count might be going in your heads, dear viewer, I'm anticipating around a 200-page anthology Black and white. This is 140 pages of black and white sword and sorcery goodness. 8.5 by 11, just like your Savage Sword of Conan. It's all my work, and therefore I really refer to this as like a player's handbook or one of the player's handbooks
Yeah.
to getting involved with CROM. If you have a copy, it's a great place just to absorb. And as I've said, you know, the original CROM the Barbarian, 4 stories by Gardner Francis Fox, John Junta, and Jack Katz. Um, they're public domain. This is material that you can
Yeah.
just lift off of and really go hog wild, and having your own barbarian story, sword and sorcery style out there.
And
Really excited.
I should say, when Drawnsword was telling about Karnak, I'm sorry, um, he described it as the a combination of the original Tales of the Jedi comic combined with Savage Sword of Conan, and those are my two favorite comics ever
Oh,
by a
oh my
long shot.
gosh.
So when he said that, I just was like, I'm looking forward to reading that as much as
Oh, I bet. Oh, I
that's.
bet.
I
Yeah.
can't.
So, and the whole idea of this, the whole CROM the Barbarian community, CROM Anthology, is to do exactly what's going on right now, which is to engage people who are really, really into this type of stuff. Which there really aren't a lot of us. We're not mainstream. I mean, you
Yeah.
could go. A lot of people try to lump Game of Thrones in as sword and sorcery. I
No.
reject that
No.
so much. I mean, Braun was my favorite character because he did exude the closest identifier to a true sellsword,
Yeah.
and in a barbarian sword and sorcery type of way. But it's not true.
No. No.
What we're talking about happened in these guys back in the 70s, into 80s. Savage Sword of Conan, 18.5 by 11. This is one of the cornerstones of me getting into comics, if you will,
Yeah.
having never seen a comic because I was buying ninja magazines
Yeah.
from the newsstands. That's where I start. I go from martial arts, black belt theater to going down and finding but I remember seeing this cover because Ninja Magazine also had airbrush style art covers.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
and the thing that actually got me was the swords because I just
Yeah.
like ninja swords and stuff. Got a hold of this, and this actually ended up becoming way more powerful of an influence on me throughout my life and even up to today. And meeting people who had a similar type of experience. The one I think is the most famous is my uncle was really into this stuff
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
had a box and gave me, blah, blah, blah. I've heard that a couple hundred times from how people got involved, especially around our age.
It was always either somebody's cool uncle or somebody's older brother that
Yeah, yeah, older brother. Yep, yep, yep,
had a
yep,
bunch of Savage Sort of Conan, and you got to. I was probably too young to be looking at it, but
Oh yeah, I
if
think
you,
that was also because heavy metal is then the
yeah,
next thing I get into. So then I get all these European influences. So I'm a bit of an odd man out when it comes to no superhero lineage, if you will,
yeah, yeah,
in comics. But the stories are always what attracts and holds me to
yeah,
something over and over again. And like I said, if you want to become involved with the community, it's very easy. CROMthebarbarian.com. I'll even put a link in the description to get there. I'm actually working on a collaboration form. But at this time, it's really just, send me an email, which is kurt@cromthebarbarian.com. I just set up a Google Workspace so I can keep myself organized. So anything that's sent to me, I can even keep it on that drive. But the biggest news I have at this point, because I did send an update on where CROM Anthology is at this point, and I'm feeling confident that somewhere after, in and after May, will be a release of the CROM Anthology.
Okay.
Number one. That's giving, but low to no stress. That goes for me as well. This is just like my endeavors with Jake Jacobs and the Turbo Pit Fighter. I get a day or two a week, because I do have other responsibilities. Working on it. But the reason I get a very whole feeling about that date is the majority of what I've seen in curation for the issue is pretty much closing in on the 200. The next update I share will actually be a page count and a list of all that will be in there.
Nice.
Because I'm not speaking. Hopefully, it's actually more thing. And as a matter of fact, I have a podcast right after this with RJ Shaw, who did a Indiegogo for his CROM the Destroyer. I'm not going to go too much into it.
Oh, okay, cool.
I want to get people to check out this issue, this episode. It would be 59.
It's on
Because we're gonna have,
Indiegogo.
what's that?
It's on Indiegogo.
It is on Indiegogo. It
Okay.
has already funded, and it has been a while, but there was issues, and I've reached out to RJ, and RJ's agreed to come on and have a conversation about trying to get something going with the anthology or the community or however it makes him comfortable. That will be something that comes along. So really looking forward to that.
You know,
But all I have to say is, do you have anything you have to say before we let these good people get back to reading comics, making them if they choose?
I was going to say, I sent you probably it sounded like an unhinged email, but because when I first, I guess your most recent update, and you were listing the number of contributors and the different styles. I think you said there's going to be some photo.
Yes.
So I got to thinking about it. And correct me, you may know, maybe I'm wrong, but when I started thinking about the number of people involved and the number of different styles involved, like with photos and everything, it's like, I don't know that anything like this has ever been done. Certain with sword and sorcery, maybe with superhero, but I don't know. I just got to thinking. When you talk about 200 pages and the number of creators, and it's just kind of it's a special thing to be involved with, because I don't know that anything like this has ever been done. Probably the closest thing would be the Brittle Blade of CROM, which was also came out last summer. But yeah, like I say, I don't know that anything like this has ever been done, and so it's exciting to be a part of it.
Thank you. Never thought of it from that vantage point. I'm the kind of guy that comes up with an idea, and if there's enough momentum and that thing keeps moving, and like I said, I allow it. My creative process is to get an idea, get it on wheels, and push it. And when the momentum is there and it gets to a kind of a completion point, if you will, that's obviously the most exciting thing. But then it's also the most discouraging thing, because, like I was saying earlier in the episode, it's very difficult to get people to stop and look and understand what it is for more than the time it takes to flip through the screen. So, the whole foundation and purpose of CROM Anthology, 200 pages, black and white sword and sorcery goodness, is the community. And so everybody involved has to feel comfortable and confident. And that's why I also do the CROM updates. This is sort of a way for it's like, it's now recorded history that Kurt and Rom have got together to talk about it. And it's real. I think the other problem out there in getting attention and putting ourselves out there and promoting, it's in words. A lot of talking. I see and hear a lot of talking, and I see very little, what was shown off today. Like I am very anti two heads side by side on a podcast talking. It
Yeah,
makes no sense when it comes to art.
yeah,
It makes
yeah,
no, especially comic books. This is where everybody needs to see. They need to see this incredible art, the talent that's behind it, and the people that are motivated to keep this stuff coming along. So
yeah.
I
And again,
believe,
I'm so
yeah.
blessed to be working with James Anthony and Drawnsword. That, like I say, they're the stars. I try to give them something that will they can do their stuff, and I try to get out of the way. So
The last thing I do want to say before we do the whole like where can we find Rom and all that is I also do not believe comic books is a one man band show. It's not. It's
yeah,
not.
yeah,
It's not
yeah,
sustainable. It's not sustainable. You might be able to pull that 200-page graphic novel off.
yeah.
You might be able. There are outliers everywhere, and God bless you. But for the other 99.99.99 people and human beings walking out there with creativity going, when you connect like you have with your storytelling ability and your visual imagination with James Anthony and Drawn Sword, this is what happens. It's just as simple as that.
Yeah.
Just kind of a joke, but
Simple as that. Yeah.
but Rom, how do people find you and more of what you have? And as I was saying in the beginning, and I cut myself off, you could get a copy and read. It's like 25 pages, 8.5 by 11. An incredible story, CROM and the Ziggurat of Blood. So where do we find you out there in the wild?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram at Brutal Blade of Rom Parsons, and yeah, you can Ziggurat of Blood. You can just download it for free from a link on my Instagram,
Yeah.
and a couple of other things you can download and read. A Alani short story. So yeah, and I'm always sharing sword and sorcery art, talking about sword and sorcery on there. So yeah, come find me there.
You're a great support, great fan, and I really do appreciate you taking the time to hang out and talk once again. And as I said, this is only episode 2 with Ron Parsons. I know by middle of the summer you're going to have your own playlist. So
Oh,
there's so
awesome.
much. There's so much between just the two of us, and that still needs to be discussed
Yeah.
when it comes to getting stuff done. So thank you. So yeah, I have already released CROM Collected. As I've stated, it's a 140 pages black and white goodness, sword and sorcery through and through, magazine size. CROMthebarbarian.com. I am heading to IC3 now. Of course, I don't have it. Oh, here it is. Just so everybody, this is a big show up in Hartford, Connecticut, and I'll be with Jake. First time going to be here, second time for the show. But this weekend, well, by the time this comes on, there's not going to be any pre-order any necessary anymore. Just want people to know, though, I will be doing this very often when I do a show. And if you end up being at the show, you can pre-order your books. But not only mine, but you can pre-order other books that I sell on CROM the Barbarian. Drawn Swords, Scoundrels, Dread, David Moses' Tales from the Holy Mountain, Annihilation, Apocalypse. And of course, what we were speaking to, which is the Brutal Blade of CROM, which Jamie Barrows is going to be. I cannot wait to meet Jamie
Oh
at
yeah.
IC3. And I'm just, and they're already, and when I say they, this is a brotherhood that's putting an incredible anthology together on their own space in in cahoots with or connection with the CROM Anthologies. Really, really, really excited to see that and everything. And another sword and sorcery master that I'll be able to shake hands with will be Adam Lemna of Relic
Oh
Hunter, which
yeah.
Relic Hunter number 2 out in the wild. We should already be seeing it. If not, well, I know books were dropped from China on Eli Schwab, who is Cosmic Lion. So a lot of really great, exciting stuff, which means you can get me over at Kurt Brugel on Instagram if that's where you like getting your noise on. But you could also join us and become a member by getting on the newsletter with cromthebarbarian.com. But once again, Rom, can't thank you enough for taking the time and chatting and everything.
My
And I
pleasure.
look forward to the next time we get together.
Yep, can't wait.
All right,
Thank you.
you take care of yourself.
You too. Take care now.